So this is a module on design thinking. It follows the sort of very quick snapshot of design history that we did. So hopefully some of the things that you learned in that session will be pushed into this. So I'm using the term design thinking, and everyone is a designer, to open up some of the practices that I started to talk about in the last session. So building on what we've learned, there are 5 principles for me really to think about what design thinking really means to me. Now there's lots of ways in which we could describe what design thinking actually is, but for me it's about 5 core things. So one is about driving empathy into the creation of something, so when you're designing something that is empathic to the people that will use it. One of the second things is about being visual and using visual skills as your form of discussion, visualizing and bringing form to things. That's part of design thinking for me. The third thing is prototyping, and what we mean by that is actually building stuff that people can use, so you can put it in their hands and they can test and see how things work, and it's about being ready to fail so we actually understand what might work and what might not work, but seeing that's part of the design process. The fourth thing really is storytelling. So I often think about my job and job of being a designer is about telling the story of what will happen next or tomorrow. And the fifth thing really is about mindset, so it's about being people-centered and focusing on the people involved in a system that will be part of delivering that thing and using it. So over them being a lot of different tools that we are going to introduce on the programme, I think it's fundamental to start out by saying that design is a learned way of thinking about the world, and it's really about making stuff with your hands and articulating things with form and trying and testing them out. So there is like one basic model that I'm going to introduce that a lot of people will be referring to when you Google design thinking or service design. It's not the only model out there, and by no way means is it any way of saying this is exactly how you do design, because there is no one way in which to do it. But it's quite a nice model to have some markers about the design process. So I guess the Design Council pushed this out as a piece of thinking around lots of different design models out there. It's called the Double Diamond, and it's split into 4 sections: discover, define, develop, deliver. And our programme kind of looks like this too. So the first half of it is about discovering and doing research around what people might need, what the system looks like, what the context is for the thing that you're designing, understanding what barriers might exist, whether it's barriers to someone using a thing, if it's quite a specific design project, or if we're actually looking at an entire system, maybe what political barriers exist. I know from Snook's practice that when we started in Scotland, this wasn't really a model that many people were familiar with and was quite new. So our design brief would often come at this middle centre point, and we'd be asked to then develop and deliver a product. So we're always pushing people back to say, can we do user research? Can we go and understand what the system looks like? So the second half is about prototyping and testing, putting something out there in the world and seeing if it works or not. And we'll do a different module on prototyping, which I'll go much more into detail of. But you can prototype at a one-to-one, or actually put something out there in the world and analyse what works and what doesn't, and continue to improve it. And in delivery is about coming to a kind of point of actually implementing the thing that you've designed. And design for me really is about getting to that implementation point. It's not just about the research, it's about making sure you understand the needs of the people in the system for the thing that you're trying to create and design. So I said that with this module I'd talk kind of explicitly away from design thinking and move into just talking about service design, because on systems changes we're looking at some of the services which are in existence that you might want to change, and that comes down to system parameters but also the design of the service that's being put into place. And I think it's first off just straight up to say that service design is the design of services. It is applying these kind of rules and ways of thinking about changing and recreating services. Now a lot of people, if you might Google service design, you'll find a lot of people talking about organisational design, policy design, culture change, lots of other things that need to be considered when actually creating a service. And that's really true. When a service doesn't exist in a vacuum, it's created by lots of different levers and parameters, from an organisation to the system it sits within. But it is important to actually consider that when we are trying to design a service, we're trying to really focus on what that service needs to do and consider what some of those different influencers might be within it. And just to really kind of let's clarify what we mean by service. I really like this quote that Philip Kotler, taken from Andreas Sirimok, says, "A service is any activity of benefit that one party can offer to another that is essentially intangible and doesn't result in the ownership of anything. Its production may or may not be tied to a physical product." And we can kind of go back and look at some of the Pine and Gilmore work as well, around moving beyond the physical product and actually thinking about an experience that has been created through the design of a service. And for me, it's really important also to say is that you can't necessarily design an experience. People will talk about experience design, but for me, I don't really see that as something that you can actually own or define for someone, because we all have different experiences based on how we feel at a certain given time. But what we can do is design the different parts or like nodes of a service to ask people to move a certain way and help them to do a thing. And that really is what this is about for me, is helping people do something, a task that they need to achieve. And in our case of the tasks we're talking about, they can be quite simple, but there's a lot of complexity around helping people to do that thing. So the services that we design need to be open and malleable enough to allow for that support for people to be able to do the thing they want to do. But what's also important, and we talk about, is within service design, is making sure we really consider the end-to-end experience. And in a super simplistic way, that's not just what happens in the moment of the thing that's being designed, whether it's someone purchasing a ticket online or sitting on a train. It's the journey to get there and the journey afterwards that matters too. And that's really important for us in service design, thinking about that. And also, that we think about every single touch point on that journey. So on this program, we're going to use the term touch point a lot. And that's really referring to different things like a leaflet that a user might be given, or a website they might be asked to log into, might be a conversation on the phone. All of these things can be designed, particularly conversation as well. We can use scripts to help us actually move a user from A to B to help them do something in that process. The scripts might sound a little harsh and a little too defined, but we can also design services to be much more open than that. But these moments still need designed and programmed in a way to make sure that when people move from channel to channel, so that's online doing something, to in person, to on the phone, by text, that you've actually designed all of that to seamlessly work together. And that for me is really the crux of service design. And the final thing within that is we talk about service design being front to back, back to front, inside and outside of the organisation. So think of it like a theatre. You've got stuff that's happening on the front of stage, and there's an audience, like your user group or your customers. So really making sure that you design what they see, but also the people who are pulling the curtains in the back and the backstage, the operations department, the frontline staff, the management, CEO, senior team, are all working together and are geared up to be able to deliver that service and continuously improve it as well. And that really for me is about service design too, and making sure that all works really well together. And it's something we talk about because quite a few of us have worked on the insides of public sector institutions or government, is making sure that the organisation, the system, have the capacity to service design on an ongoing basis too. And that's really, really important, because often you can have maybe experts or consultants of any kind or any discipline come in and try and help improve that discipline, that service in a way they want to, but not really help actually grow the capacity of an organisation to do that. And we've seen from guys like GDS, they're not only doing training of civil servants like we saw when we went to visit them, but also building products that help actually analyse how a service is performing to make sure that it can be improved over time. So it's really important to say. And with all of this design thinking and service design and different design disciplines, that we're thinking about people first and that we're grounded by user research, and that's really, really fundamental. Having your research around what people need and what the system might need as well is important to use as evidence to back up the decisions you make in a design process. If you decide to change a form, you decide to change the way a button sits on a website, you decide to change the entire process of a service, you must have evidence for that. We must ground it in understanding people, and we've got a different talk on kind of research methods within the prototyping section of how we do that through observation, talking to people, interviews, but you can do that in a really light touch way to really understand it. So that is a really quick snapshot of design thinking, and what we think about when we're designing services. We've got a whole group of tools that we have and are trying out on this program for lots of different ways, from mapping service experiences to documenting people's needs. We're going to pick up on them in a separate session. But really, let's just remember that when we're thinking about service design and designing, that we're putting people first, that we're telling stories about what needs to happen, that it's about driving empathy into those processes, and ultimately, like we saw in the design history lecture, that form follows function. So we're thinking about usability, making stuff work, and helping people do something in a way that works for them and the organisation delivering it. So that's where and why we bring design into that process.